Hello, everybody. We'll talk about that one. Let me make sure I'm good with the audio. Good to see everybody. Hopefully, you all enjoyed your Saturday so far. Yeah, what a game! I don't know where to start with that one. Let me make sure I'm good with the audio. Okay, so we're good with audio. So Alabama beats Auburn 24-22 in the new goofy overtime rules that no one likes because we all had too much fun watching LSU and Texas A&M shootout years ago. Man, what an ugly game, but also there's a lot to talk about. We'll start off with the obvious. Auburn's defense came to play. Derek Mason, he might get himself a coaching job in some place that's not a complete disaster like Vanderbilt. He had an excellent game plan. Now he was aided by Jamison Williams being on punt, which is weird. And we'll talk about that. What a weird. I recognize he's on at every game, and then I watched today, and wow, whatever. Okay, so Alabama beats Auburn in 4 overtimes. I'm Zach Cornelius here with the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV. We're on 3 different channels today. It's my first time being on the main channel, so I'm super excited. Hopefully, we'll have a good conversation here for the next hour or so, talking about what was an incredible Iron Bowl that Auburn fans are going to feel they squandered. They're going to feel like they squandered that one, and they probably did. There was a couple huge mistakes down the stretch that, man, you're going to look at Brian Harsin and Tank Bigsby and Derek Mason, who I just spent, couple seconds complimenting, are going to kick themselves. Let's get right into it. Alabama's game was saved. I see someone just commented it. Game was saved when Tank Bigsby went out of bounds with about a minute. I think it was a minute 47 left. Let me get my phone real quick because I have all these notes. About a minute 47 left. He goes out of bounds. Alabama gets to save their timeout. And the Auburn punter makes an incredible punt down at the where did Chapman down him at? The 2. So if you're the Auburn defense, you've been incredible all day. You got 2. You have to stop them for a minute 40. They got no timeouts, and they have to go 98 yards, and you can't do it. Ja'Cory Brooks with an incredible catch up the right sideline, as you're looking at it, right sideline. And man, that was and then you get to overtime. Alabama scores. Auburn scores. They got to the 4 overtimes and they got to the 2-point conversion tries, but man, you got to go for 2 there. You have to. I understand Saban not going for 2 when they scored, like some other coaches would, mostly because you're the more talented team. Now you have all the momentum. They can't run the ball on you, and that's all they can do. TJ Finley's walking around on what, a quarter of a leg at that point? I understand them not going for 2, but man, you have to go for 2 if you're Auburn in that first overtime. You have to go for 2. They don't. They get the extra point, mostly also because they had the kicker today, Patton, who's like in his second. He's kicked 2 field goals for today, and he went 1 for 2 last week against South Carolina. And he drilled that 49-yarder. Credit to him. Not an easy situation. Credit to Riker too, with drilling the 38-yarder to tie it. It's just, you have to go for 2 there. And with these stupid new overtime rules, it just ruins it. If you like these new overtime rules, get out of my chat. I'm kidding. But man, they're just, It's so fun. And then you watch 2-point tries. You watch one play, you watch 2 plays, and then you got to wait 3 minutes as they go to the other side of the freaking field. Just awful, 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 awful. But anyway, Alabama wins. So their season is still alive, as unlikely as it seems after the LSU game and the Arkansas game. And now this game, their season is not over. Sorry, I'm reading comments as they scroll in. Just wow. I can't believe what I watched because I as you guys see, that I make some like it's really easy to make, but I start making some graphics. Maybe I kind of jinxed it, reverse jinxed it. If you're an Alabama fan, because I started writing in like 10-3. I was like, the way this Auburn defense is playing, no, and how shook Bryce Young looked. He looked, especially on the first couple throws of that drive. I mean, he missed, I think it was Bolden over the middle. He missed him horribly. And I'm like, there's no way Bryce Young can make this drive. And he did. John Mechie with an incredible day. Incredible day. And we can talk more about the issues Alabama's had because there was a lot of them coming out today. And you would like to give the defense credit. You would like to give them credit, but Alabama's run defense. I know Alabama's defense has taken a lot of junk this year, but their run defense, Will Anderson and all those guys up front, have been pretty good all year. Even against Arkansas, they were pretty good. And today was no different. I mean, I really want Bama's website to have my live stats, but now I just got to use ESPN, and I don't like using ESPN. But I tried getting on here quickly after the game. But Tank Bigsby was 2.2 yards per carry. I mean, Auburn as a team, 40 carries, 22 yards. And if you take away TJ Finley, 7 carries for negative 42 yards, it's still only 32 carries for 65 yards, which is less than 2 yards a carry. The run D was incredible today for Alabama. And TJ Finley was on one leg. I see some of you commenting like, man, Bama barely and you're not wrong. Like I want to give the defense credit today because they did only score 10 points before overtime. When the game was still, within the 4 quarters, they only had 10 points. But and flip side, Derek Mason had a heck of a game too. Man, but like, what was Auburn going to do? They don't have any wide receivers. They can't run the ball. They have a quarterback that's on one leg. Their backup today was a kid from Bowling Green State who in 2019 started there and threw 6 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Yeah, I see Jeff's comment here. Yeah, number 5 run D. Like it's not Georgia, but it's pretty close. And then you got to give a lot of credit to Bryce Young. And that atmosphere was nuts, especially when Auburn fans, I think, started to believe they could win the game. Because I don't think anybody really thought they could. And then when they went up 10-0 and they kept getting stops, I really do think once they started to think, oh, we can win this thing, that atmosphere turned up to another level and going 98 yards in a minute 40, ice in the veins, as someone put in the chat. Jeff, again, ice in his veins. What a comeback. And we'll talk more about Bryce Young and what this could mean for potentially his Heisman hopes, because before that drive, they were gone. And now he's definitely right in the thick of it. But now to talk about some of the negatives, the Alabama offensive line was abysmal again. They were bad. They were really bad today. They couldn't get anything going explosively in the run game. Brian Robinson tried. I'll give, and he was hurt. So I'm going to give Brian Robinson a little bit of credit today. I thought he played pretty okay. Let me look real quick. I know it's scrolling, but 16 carries, 71 yards, 4.4 yards a carry. But he only got the 137-yard gain. And outside of that, 15 carries. Let me do my quick mental math. 34 yards. So man, the offensive line was abysmal. Bryce Young was under duress all day. And I'm trying to pull up. This is why I wanted the live stats ready, because I wanted to see, how exactly how many tackles for a loss they got, how many sacks they got. But of course they don't. Because they need to upload it and do all the fun stuff that you have to do when you're a SID and doing live stats. But man, yeah, credit to Bryce Young. But yeah, that offensive line was abysmal. This is the first time in how many years, and someone pointed it out on Twitter, we see Alabama dominate teams with their O-line. Just dominate teams. And we can talk about the rest of college football and some of the implications here, because I see some people talking about Ohio State, Michigan, which good for you, Michigan. Good for you. But my Lord, I come on, rolltide.com. Give me the live stats. Maybe Auburn's will. Just keep going on the offensive line. But give me your guys' thoughts, reactions. Let's have a conversation here. Not just me talking at you. That's not fun for anybody. So let's just have a conversation here. One of my banners I made, this was earlier in the game too. I was like, Bill O'Brien, what was your plan today? What was your plan? The run game is not creative. Jameson Williams goes out, and you have no deep threat. So Mechie's a very good receiver, but he's not a deep threat. He's a intermediate guy. Where are the tight ends? Where's Slade Bolden? Where are any of these guys? If you're out of wide receivers, bring in more to protect Bryce. Bryce just got murdered all day long. I want to see stats, please. There we go. Auburn has it. Let's go. Thank you, Auburn. But what is there really to say about Bill O'Brien? I mean, I know Alabama fans now want him gone. They want him gone, and I don't blame them. Last week it was, we need to fire the defensive coordinator. This week, we need to fire Bill O'Brien. And I seem to agree with Brian. And people have been giving Bryce some credit in the comments, and I want to too. He's not had it on easy mode. Mac Jones, as great as he was and how good he looks in the NFL, had it on easy mode. He had some great wide receivers. He had Najee Harris. He really did have it on easy mode. Tua had it on easy mode a lot. Bryce does not have it on easy mode. Is Jameson Williams, who got kicked out of the game because he's on punt again. Why is he on the punt? I know maybe early in the season you don't quite know what you have in him. So, you put him out there. Once it's clear, I mean, he's a Biletnikoff finalist, and he's on punt. I don't get it. Individual stats, defense. I mean, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sacks today on Bryce Young. Just an awesome day for some of these guys. Tackles for a loss, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 tackles for a loss. The Alabama offensive line is just not capable. But, man, Bryce Young has not had it on easy mode, and he's been incredible this year. He's been incredible. But let's get to some of these comments. Okay. Wobbly 4 seed, not being. If they lose to Georgia, they're out. And you can't have really any confidence in Alabama right now winning that game. Grab my drink. If they lose that game, they're out. Their best hope is that their defense keeps it kind of close, which I think they can, because Stetson Bennett has been very efficient this year. But when he can't rely on his run game, and he's playing a talented defense. I know, like, a couple games the Georgia run game wasn't great. Like, who was it? Mizzou, I think, shut him down for a little bit. And Stetson Bennett just lit them up because, it's Missouri. I don't think he'll be able to do that against Alabama. So their best hope is that their defense really keeps them in it, and they can maybe get a defensive score, a special team score. That's going to have how they're going to have to do it. Yeah, no, of course he's on special teams for his speed, but you can't have another guy. There's not another fast guy on the team that can make tackles on punt. You're risking injury. Yeah, Alabama has to be Georgia. Where's this comment so I can pull it down? Yeah, Alabama's gonna have to be Georgia because the fun chaos. If you guys want some fun chaos, Michigan loses next week to Iowa. Oklahoma wins this game and then loses next week in the rematch. Then who do you put in? Because you'll have Cincy, you'll have Georgia, and let's say Alabama does lose to Georgia. You have Georgia, you have Cincy, you'll have Notre Dame, and who? So think about that for a second. Yep, as I just talked about, Stetson Bennett is not worthy. Bama crushes Bennett. I don't know. Bennett's going to have to play well. He's going to have to play pretty well for if Georgia's going to crush Alabama, because Alabama's run D is really good. It's 5th in the country. So Mac Jones didn't have to battle away crowd. You are correct, sir. Let me pull down the Bill O'Brien thing. Miami fan. No one's hiring Bill O'Brien away after this. There were thoughts that some teams would want him as head coach. No. A lot of Bama got bailed out. Bailed out to me always seems like refs made a huge mark on it. I don't think the refs made a huge mark on today's game. They did get fortunate that Tank Bigsby, if some of the older crowd in here, Marion Barbered it. If anyone remembers that reference. And they made plays. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to harp on Tank Bigsby, especially Gary Danielson, who just wouldn't shut up about it. But I mean, Alabama had to go 98 yards in a minute 40 with no timeouts, and they did it. Especially and they looked really shaky for a couple plays. Where it's like, oh man, I don't know about that one. What the heck, ESPN, are you telling me right now? There it is. 12 plays, 97 yards in a minute. What they had done so well is not letting anything behind them. Just reading the comments, and you guys are going crazy, and I love it. Love it. Love it. Keep bringing it for a little while. For a while tonight. We'll talk all about this game and about the implications, the playoff, as we're going to go, probably 45 more minutes? Oh, my throat's sore after watching that game. Touchdown, Oklahoma. And Notre Dame Stanford is going to have big implications. Yeah, and if you're Auburn, that drive's going to kill you. Because you have incomplete pass. You have 3rd and 10, 22-yard completion. 21-yard completion on 2nd and 1. And then you have nothing. 3rd and 7. You have a 4th and 7. You have to make one play, and you'll have knocked off Alabama. For the 3rd straight time on the Plains, for the 4th time in 5 tries on 5 plays, and Billingsley for 14 yards. First time I'd seen an Alabama tight end in like 2.5 quarters. And then on a 3rd and 10 gets a touchdown. When I saw that ball get lofted, it felt like time froze because The ball was hung up in the air for so long, and credit Brooks, man. That was a heck of a catch. So then we get to overtime. Touchdown, Alabama. They had no issues getting that touchdown, none whatsoever. And then Landon King with what Nestler was talking about it. Fourth string tight end. It's like that kid from Kansas making the fullback making that play. And for some reason, and I'm going to harp on this, like, why are you kicking the field goal? Why? Go for 2. What do you have to lose? If you're Brian Harsin, what do you have to lose? If the game keeps going, you're probably going to lose because you're less talented and you're playing on a quarterback. You're playing a quarterback with one leg. One leg. And you can't run the ball. So you're at the 3-yard line. You're not even running it for 2 yards of carry. 2 yards of carry is falling forward. And you haven't been able to do that all game. What are you doing? And you just kick a field. Like, trying to improve your bull slot. There's no real difference in 7 and 5 and 6 and 6. Just can't. I don't understand that decision from Auburn. I don't get it. You saw Elijah Drinkwitz last week of Missouri, less talented team, got some momentum, went for 2. You just see it, and I don't understand it. No, I don't think. We talked about it against LSU. We've talked about it against some other teams that their offensive line is it's not very good, and it's getting to be too late. And now you have 1 week to prep for those monsters, those freaks, Jordan Davis and the like. Man, Finley was, man, what was crazy too was he was obviously hurt. His ankle was shot. I don't know if his ankle or what, but he was barely putting any weight on the one leg. And then in the 2-point tries, they kept rolling him out. What are you doing? I know Brian Harsin was the offensive coordinator at Boise when they did all the crazy plays against OU back in 2006, 2007. It was 2006 season. It might have been New Year's Day. I don't remember. I was 10. I'm only 25 now. But you had to have something. You couldn't run that little rollout throwback on after the extra point. I'm going to keep harping on that. Like, that's a bad decision. That's a bad decision by Brian Harsin. And it could probably cost them. It might have cost them the game because they ended up losing anyway because their quarterback can't throw and they couldn't run the ball. And it was obvious their quarterback. Look at the time of possession stats. If you just want to roll through the team stats, on 3rd down, Auburn was 5 for 18. Alabama, 8 for 22. 159 total yards for Alabama, or for Auburn. 159. And you had a chance to win the game. Obviously, you're getting outplayed. You really are. Like, you're getting some stops, and your defense is playing really hard, and they're making key plays. But I don't understand. And even as someone with a rooting interest, I don't understand what Brian. Even I was getting frustrated. Let's see. Someone mentioned, wish you could have seen the game with Bo Nix was in there. I don't know, because Bo Nix is more likely to make some really, really stupid plays. Some like really stupid plays, but maybe he could. I don't know. I agree. It would have been interesting to see what Nix could have done. But I don't know about Bo Nix. But Alabama won't be number 3. I don't. Sorry, sound like Kermit the Frog. I think Michigan will jump them. Michigan does what it did today against Ohio State, which, again, congrats. If there's any Michigan fans in the chat, congrats to you guys. That was so fun to watch your guys' reaction, running out on the field. That was so much fun. But, yeah, I can't see Alabama being 3. I think they're dropping down to 4. And the entire game, I'm going to be on. I'll tell a fun little honesty truth here. The whole time, even though when Auburn was going up like 7-0 and 10-0, it's great. I was like, okay, at any point, touchdown Okie State, they're up now 14-7. At some point, I was like, okay, Alabama's going to break through, and they're going to win this game 24-10. And I'm going to come on here, and I'm gonna come on here, and we're going to complain about Bill O'Brien's plan, but we're going to give props to the defense, although Auburn's severely hampered. We're going to talk about Georgia, and it's going to be like, okay, another ugly win, but can they put it all together against Georgia? The moment I knew this game was going to be weird, and I talked about it earlier, was when Williams got kicked out for targeting on a punt. And I know, oh, he's fast. That's why he's on punt. That's great. Once he's a Biletnikoff finalist, get him off the punt team. I'm sure somebody else can make a tackle. Someone's got to be able to make a tackle. And he gets kicked out. I know you're not ever thinking that's going to happen, but injuries, something crazy, stupid could have happened there. And yeah, I mean, he got kicked out. And now I think he's going to miss the first half against Georgia. FCS play. I went to an FCS school. The FCS playoffs are awesome. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. I think they can be. If I'm just being honest, I think they can be. I honestly think they're biased for Power 5 more than anything. Power 5, and that's just obvious. Power 5, and there might be a little SEC tilt, but what they want to do is create narratives. So that's why you saw like Mississippi State jump up in the rankings quite a bit, and to give Alabama some extra, or even at the time Texas A&M, not Texas A&M. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. And give them a little extra, more credit than they probably deserved, so they could justify keeping them higher in the rankings above Cincinnati, above Michigan State, whoever. And even if I don't think, sitting here today in front of all of you, I don't think Alabama is going to beat Georgia next week. In fact, I don't think it's going to be a very fun game to watch. I don't think it's going to be like a crazy 49-10 game, because I don't think Georgia can do that to this Alabama defense. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's 28-13, something, something low scoring. That's right. Thank you. I had notes on when that happened, and I just could not remember for the life of me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sacred Heart versus Holy Cross. Swampy. That's funny. Committee just cares about matchups once it gets to top 4. True. And we're might have some interesting. We might have Cincy Notre Dame, or not. We might have a Cincy Michigan, Notre Dame Georgia. Now Notre Dame will continue their tradition of getting whipped in the playoff, but this year I can't really blame them for putting them in the playoff, because who else is going in? Oklahoma State, team that beat Missouri State by 7, Boise by 1, Tulsa by 7. Man. Over under 3.5 sacks for Jordan Davis. I don't think Jordan Davis will get any sacks. I don't think he can chase down Bryce Young. But over under tackles for a loss from caving in the middle of the Alabama offensive line and getting Brian Robinson or Trey Sanders. 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. If they beat Georgia, they're in. Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think anybody here will. I don't think anybody here would argue that. Bow's probably duh. Yeah, that that was a dumb comment. I'll admit that. It shouldn't be that. No, if only we had a way to prove who was better, Cincinnati or Notre Dame. If only we had a way for these two teams to prove who was better on a football field. Big 12 champ. Here's the thing with the Big 12. If OU wins tonight and they win and they beat Oklahoma State again, depending on some other things, I think they'll get in. But if it's Okie State, and Oklahoma State's defense is really good. It's really good. But man, I can't. I don't know. It's hard for me to take Oklahoma State seriously because I've seen them so many times come into Bedlam or into November, and it's like, oh, Oklahoma State's pretty good, and then they just melt down. And if they play Baylor next week, Baylor could beat them. I'm biased towards Longhorn Steakhouse. Well, Longhorn's one word, so if you're gonna make fun of me, I'm gonna make fun of you. But I will admit my comment was dumb. Not gonna lie. 8 points. As Alabama, their season's not over. Okie State Final Four can happen. I agree, it can happen. Because if they put a beating on Oklahoma tonight and they put a beating on them next week, don't doubt the committee's ability to try and get them in there above Cincinnati. And, and rightfully, maybe they should. Because they've beaten Baylor. Who did they lose to? They beat Texas. Back when we all thought Texas might be okay. How wrong were we? Greatly wrong were we? Let's see anymore. Rumor has it Lincoln Riley going to LSU. Well, that number is going to start with a 1, his contract. And it's not going to end with a 0. So I don't know. I saw the thing where a bunch of LSU people like Will Wade and the baseball coach started following Lincoln. I think they're just kind of hearing the same things we are, that they're hearing the same things, that like he might get hired. I don't know why he would leave Oklahoma. I wouldn't if I was him, and LSU's a heck of a program. But you have a freshman quarterback, you have good recruiting classes coming in, you're about to leave for the SEC. I mean, but if LSU's handing you a blank check, I understand. And I'm going to keep working to see who Oklahoma State lost to, because I am failing to remember. Oh, that's right. They lost to, of course they lost to Iowa State. Who doesn't lose in Ames when they're, especially Oklahoma State? Jimbo Fisher on my mouth. Is he a top 4 coach in the game right now? Saban, Dabo. Man, I probably not, because I'm going to probably have Lincoln in there. I'm going to have Brian Kelly in there. I know we all no one likes Brian Kelly, but results speak for themselves. Brian Kelly. And then, I mean, you're going to have Kirby up there. You're going to have some other guys. So I don't know. No, I'm going to say no, but he's obviously an elite coach. I mean, you don't win a national championship, even with that talent they had. That 13 Florida State team was ridiculous. Miracle. 5 points, Auburn. Was able to hang with them for so long. Let me hide that comment. How in the world do you let? That's what I'm asking. How do you let them go 90 yards? That's what's going to kick them. And Derek Mason had a heck of a day. His game plan was excellent, much like Mike McDonald's was at Michigan today. Excellent, excellent game plan today for Auburn. And they exposed issues Alabama's been having. I mean, you saw them against LSU. You saw the issues on defense against Arkansas, because it seems like right now Alabama can't put a full game together, offense and defense. Today, the defense was pretty good, although against a very hampered opponent, and the offense couldn't block anything. I'm not going to say me. They would throw me into the 100th row of the mezzanine. But it was abysmal. It was really abysmal today. Let me see here. I think I'm missing quite a bit because you guys are just going crazy in the chat. And while I do love that, I just miss a bunch. Are we talking about Lincoln Riley and Jimbo still? Are we talking about the LSU job? Because I don't know. Because apparently, according to I want to source them, but somebody on Twitter with a check mark, reputable source, Billy Napier is the leading option at Florida, which isn't surprising. Billy Napier is a really good coach. However, if he's the option at Florida, it's weird that there has to be some reason LSU doesn't want him. And maybe that's because Scott Woodward wants to make a splash hire, but who's left to make that splash hire unless it's Jimbo Fisher, unless it's Lincoln Riley? Then there's not a lot of options. Mel Tucker's not going anywhere. James Franklin, you won one anyway right now after a 7-5 season. There's no one really out there. That is is a splash hire if you're LSU at this point. So this is going to be an interesting offseason. There's a lot of teams that need coaches, a lot of good programs that need coaches. Oklahoma has all the money in the world if they want to bring OU back or Lincoln back. But if LSU offers, if LSU offers 13 mil, 12 mil, can Oklahoma match that? And if Lincoln Riley's getting 12 mil at LSU, what is Nick Saban going to ask for his AD? License to kill, maybe? At that point, I don't know. Get the full James Bond access. Should steal Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning's a heck of a coach. I don't know. Florida, I don't know what Florida's looking for in their next coach. I'll be honest, because it doesn't seem like they're okay with not making they're okay with not winning the press conference. It seems, you know what I mean? Like LSU seems determined to win that opening press conference. Thank you. They want to win that opening press conference. They want to bring their guy on stage, and the guy's going to say a couple things witty, and they're going to go, "Hey, look at that!" And everyone's going to get excited. Where Florida doesn't seem like they're okay with bringing a guy. He's going to say some really boring things, and then he's going to go out and recruit his butt off, which is the first thing Florida needs. They need somebody that can recruit. Let's see. What do we want to bring up? Deion Sanders? Not yet. Not yet. I think it's the wrong time. Yeah, that Mel Tucker extension, I didn't understand. Is that a shot at me, Chase? Come on, man. We're all friends here. I'm just here to talk football. I don't care. I could talk to football to myself in the shower. I say that every week, but you're not here every week. Tennessee beat Vanderbilt. No one's impressed. But good for Tennessee. 7-5 seasons, nothing to sneeze at. But going back to this game, The Alabama offensive line against Georgia, how many times has that been said that that's going to be a mismatch? Bill O'Brien's going to have to come up with something creative just to make the Alabama run game a threat, because it's not a threat most of the time. USC, no clue. I think they're banking on Dave Aranda. And if Dave Aranda doesn't come, and apparently Dave Aranda's really comfortable in Waco, he's done a heck of a job this year. Then I see Eric right above it, mentioned Campbell. So I don't know. I don't know. Does Florida State fire their coach? No. Earlier in the year, I would have said yes. When they lost to Jacksonville State, and then they just kept losing. They were one of two teams that hadn't won a game yet. But no, I think Norvell's done a decent job. He needs to find a quarterback. Jordan Travis isn't it. He's not it. But I think he'll stay. He'll get one more year. And he better win 7, 8, 9 games next year. Maybe more than 7. He better win 8, 9 games. Yeah, I mean, I guess over at SEC or at the Voice of College Football Alabama, we can do a pregame show or a preview for Alabama, Georgia. I'll talk to Mark about that because I think that would be fun. It's just hopefully bring a few people in. Hopefully maybe do a little bit of a round table, get a Georgia fan in here, talk about the game. Miranda is more I'm saying a lot. I'm like Robbins from How I Met Your Mother. But yes and no. I think they've had similar seasons. They struggled last year and they've exceeded expectations in year 2. Aranda does have more of a track record of being an excellent defensive coordinator. However, I don't think he's worth $9.5 million. Like, this Mel Tucker contract has a chance to look really, really ugly. Because what are your expectations now at Michigan State? What are your expectations? Are your expectations to win 10 games every year? Because that's not going to happen. Especially since you're playing Ohio State every year, who proved they're better than you. He's done a decent job recruiting. I think his class is in the top 20, and he relied a lot on transfers this year. So he needs to show that he can develop. So I don't know. Agree. Fickle for USC. Let's see. Eric Campbell, what did you comment? I know that was Thomas. Eric, LSU. Apparently, if you're talking about LSU, Florida, whoever, apparently Fickle. I think he's been pretty quiet for a reason, because I'm pretty sure from what we've read, Fickle's okay with staying at Cincy because he's about to get Power 5 money and wants to wait and see if Ryan Day leaves Ohio State, what happens maybe at some other Big Ten jobs. Not Michigan State. He's already turned that job down. He's got a bunch of kids. He's got a bunch of newborns. I think what Bruce Feldman's talked about is he doesn't want to leave the Midwest at this time. Miami, that's the thing. There's so many big jobs open. Miami's open. Virginia Tech's a pretty good job. It's open. Florida's open. LSU's open. USC's open. And guys want to stay. Mel Tucker appears not. I know Mel Tucker was a popular candidate. He's apparently not wanting to go anywhere. James Franklin, again, just went 7-5. Who really wants James Franklin at this point? He just got a huge extension. He's not going anywhere. All reports are Fickle isn't going anywhere. Who's left? Jeff Traylor from UTSA? I don't know. I don't know if Miami will fire Manny Diaz. I think he's a good coach. He's turned around Baylor. I mean, I know when Matt Rule left, there was like a mass exodus of seniors. That's why he left. And he got an NFL job, so you can't really blame him. So when there's a mass exodus of seniors like that, it's easy to move on. And Aranda's done a really good job of bringing in and getting to, what are they now? 10-2 in year 2 there. Like he's been excellent. And he's a good coach, and a lot of people respect him. A lot of people speak really highly of Dave Aranda. I do not like listening to Colin Cowherd. But he has Joel Klatt on, and I sometimes like listening to Klatt. And Klatt likes to talk about, when Klatt talks about things he hears from other people, I believe him. And a lot of people have a lot of respect for Aranda. Yep, that's already been announced, I'm fairly sure. Apparently he's going to Florida. Yeah, apparently he's got some young kids. Shoot, he might work for every SEC team by the time this video's over at this point. He'll be the one to watch. He'll be the one to watch. I think he's staying, though. Unless he sees Corral leaving and goes, well, I've done all I can do. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of rapid fire this. Yeah, I think so. I think it was Mel for so long, but I think we all assumed Michigan would get whipped by Ohio State again. And now that they didn't, yeah, I'm sure you have to give it to Harbaugh, which good for him. Kiffin needs to leave. Kids needs to staying put. A lot of Kiffin talk. Kiffin to Vandy. No, Clark Lee's. I think he's a good coach. I don't know what the future looks like there, but I think he's a good coach. Which is weird. I'm glad you brought that up. I always thought he did a good job at Penn State, and then you hear some things that maybe he didn't, and a lot of people didn't like him. But I thought he did a heck of a job coming out of the stuff that happened earlier in the last decade. And his offensive game plans have been pretty wild. A lot of the times the offense seems to be Bryce Young making a play, and that's not very good. A good look for your offensive coordinator. Yeah, Sark will survive a year. He'll survive 2. Sark will survive. It's not going to be a fun offseason for him. He'll survive. So I'm going to tell a fun story. So I was at the first home game of the SEC for the Missouri Tigers. They played Georgia. If you remember back in 2012, the old man football game. And I remember watching that game and seeing how big the Georgia guys were compared to Mizzou. Like Sheldon Richardson, if you all remember, very good player for Missouri, but he looked small compared to the Georgia offensive lineman. And I remember leaving the stadium and talking to some Georgia fans like, hey, man, this was awesome. What an experience. Not a lot of teams bring the fans Georgia, like Nebraska would bring people, and Kansas sometimes would bring people, but Kansas State wasn't bringing people. I'm like, you guys traveled all the way from Athens up here to Columbia. This is awesome. SEC is going to be a blast. But my God, were your players so much bigger than us? And the guy looks at me and goes, yeah, that's how Alabama makes us feel. And this was a Georgia team with a ton of NFL players on it. Alec Ogletree was on that team. Todd Gurley was on that. It was Todd Gurley's freshman year. So, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Maybe this year, because I don't think Lebby will get any of the premier openings you see, but those premier openings are going to leave other openings, and Oklahoma ties it. Those premier openings are going to leave other openings, and I think that's when Lebby will get his shot. But I like Jeff Lebby a lot. Sorry, I'm trying to find a question I like. They didn't make them less important, but it made it harder to recruit. So these last couple classes are going to be weird. They're just going to be hard to judge. It's really going to have to be on development. No, I don't think he gets Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers is going to Auburn or he's going to Tennessee if he transfers. He decommitted from Texas. I don't think Texas wants him back, although they could use him because Hudson Card and Casey Thompson do not appear to be it. Thoughts when LSU beats A&M? What's the score of that game? I got Oklahoma on TV1, and it's 17-7 at half. I don't know. I have to look at what happened. I have to look at what happened because I've only got one TV on right now because I can't be doing this, looking at a second TV and looking at this. And Oklahoma State just returned a kickoff for a touchdown. This game is going to be crazy. Notre Dame is so overrated. Discuss me. We can say Notre Dame is overrated, and I agree that they're not a great team. But if everybody else keeps losing and they keep winning, what else do you do? I know if Alabama were to lose next week, I would agree with you that Alabama is better than Notre Dame. I would completely agree with you, but we can't reward recruiting classes. We have to, the games have to matter, which I see FCS playoffs. I love the FCS playoffs, but the issue with the FCS, and this is okay because those games aren't all on TV, they're all on ESPN Plus or local networks. Every game doesn't matter. And I went to an FCS school. Games didn't matter. Every game in college football, Division I, FBS, should matter. Believe me, I know. I was there. LaDamian Washington scored a touchdown. I was going nuts. Believe me. FCS. So, in the FBS, I want every game to matter because say we have this format, well, if we had a 2014 format or whatever, even like a 16-team format, this game next week now between Alabama and Georgia doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And today's game probably doesn't matter either. You can go, woo, we won, but you didn't ruin somebody's season, which is what Auburn was trying to do, and part of the fun of college football. Congrats, Purdue. Your win over Ohio State was a lot of fun. You didn't accomplish anything. Maybe if he stays. Look at the Irish. They were. I mean, look at the total plays. And at the time, if I remember, total plays were like 88 to like 52 at that point. Like it was crazy. Crazy. Yeah, it's not a completely fair system, but every game should matter. That's why I also don't love automatic conference. If you win your conference, you're in, because then the non-con doesn't matter. So all these fun games, the Oregon-Ohio State game this year, if we did it that way, wouldn't matter. It'd just be a fun game. You can watch it, but it doesn't really matter who wins, who loses, because both those teams would still be in the playoffs. So I know that Discopic is a little controversial for some, but 8 teams, yeah, I would max go to 6 and have the top 2 have bye weeks, and then the 3 play 6 and the 4 plays 5 at the higher seed stadium. They get home games. But someone at Swampy commented, yeah, the NCAA is just for money. So it's gonna happen. Believe me, I'll get over it. Everyone who doesn't want the playoff to expand will get over it. It'll be okay. It's just what I prefer. I'm not going to sleep at night going, oh, don't you expand my playoff. It's just something I just wish wouldn't happen. But we'll live. We'll all still really like the sport. But the one argument I do hate is, well, the NCAA tournament has 64 teams. College football and college basketball aren't remotely similar. Basketball is, it's not even close to similar. I mean, we kind of do. Today is kind of that, isn't it? And what's the scores of those games? I know Georgia just dominated Georgia Tech, which, yeah. Clemson's somehow scored 17 points. Kentucky's up on Louisville. Well, it looks like the SEC's dominating the ACC Challenge. Florida beat Florida State. Ole Miss beat Louisville earlier this year. Georgia beat Georgia Tech. Kentucky's beating Louisville. Clemson's beating South Carolina. So there kind of is an ACC SEC Challenge, and the SEC's dominating. Shocking. And maybe Wake Forest will play an SEC team in a bowl game, which you should all watch because Wake Forest is fun. They have they lose Kenneth Walker and somehow still are an elite team. Or not elite, pretty good. They're a pretty good team. Elite's the wrong word. But yeah, let's finish just wrapping up. We can talk. You guys give about 10 more minutes. Get all your comments, questions, anything you want in. This has been a lot of fun. And I'll get to everything I can, and we'll start wrapping things up before too long. But this has been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. I agree, but we kind of do already. It's rivalry week, so now you want poor Georgia Tech to play Georgia every year, and then potentially also have to play Arkansas. Like, that's just not fair for them. That's just not fair. A good season for Arkansas. Yeah, they do. Good job. I'm just messing with you. Michigan, Georgia for defensive fun. No, because Michigan can't stop the run. Great. They're not great at stopping the run. Kenneth Walker lit them up. But they're really good against the pass. But Georgia wouldn't have to pass much. Isn't the Big Ten Championship always the night game? Because isn't it Pac-12 Friday, Big 12 Saturday morning, SEC Saturday afternoon, Big 10 on Fox at night, ACC on ESPN at night. Which I'm sure ESPN and Fox are delighted that it's not Michigan, Wisconsin, and that it's Wake Forest, Pitt. I'm sure they're over the moon about those matchups. Honestly, not shaping up to be a great ride. Unless Alabama makes it again. Utah, Oregon could be fun. But I'm in the night games don't look fun. The first three look cool. They're a fraudulent team. I've said that all year. They're a fraudulent team. And they're just not fun to watch. Now, credit to them for winning a lot of games. I mean, every year you look up and Iowa's the 19th ranked team in the country and they're 8-4. So congrats to them. But yeah, they're boring. But you'll take wins when you get them. So congrats to them. So yeah, your options next Saturday night are going to be probably, if it's the same schedule it is every year, Wake Forest, Pitt, which could be fun. That's going to be a lot of points because Kenny Pickett is a really good quarterback, and so is Sam Hartman. And yeah. Are we calling our shot? Where do they go? The ACC? They're not going to the SEC. Because at least Oklahoma and Texas have like basketball programs that are halfway decent. I mean, Oklahoma made the tournament, or I think both of them made the tournament last year. Did Texas make the tournament? But they did hire Chris Beard, and they have a heck of a team this year, it appears. So I don't know where Penn State's going. Doesn't Joel have the same take I do, which is I hate expansion? I don't really remember. Texans need to draft every position on the field possible, except running back. Don't take a running back. I mean, yeah, you could take Kenny Pickett. They still have Laramie Tunsil to play tackle to protect him. So, yeah, quarterback would be a fine pick. But I don't know. This is a weak quarterback class. This is a really, really, really weak. I don't know about Sam Hartman. We'll see. I like Sam Hartman, though. He's a lot of fun to watch. They were. That's true. I just don't know. The Big Ten is such a part of Penn State's identity now. I don't know. I mean, the ACC would probably be a good move for them as a program. because they would be what? Maybe the second biggest brand? Are they bigger in Miami right now? I would argue they are. Are they bigger in Florida State? I would argue they are. So, man, yeah, that would be a good move for them because they would still be atrocious in basketball, but they would have they'd have a lot of success in football. Instead of playing Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State every year, you get to play what they'll probably be in the Atlantic. Because if they're in the Coastal, they get to play North Carolina State, Pitt every year. They'd probably be in the Atlantic, but I don't know. Ann Arbor's been rocking since 9 a.m. this morning. Next Sunday. You'll now follow Brett McMurphy on Twitter. He gets all the insight for these. Some teams they'll announce, like East Carolina is going to the Armed Forces Bowl, I think it is. So some teams they'll be like, "Oh, we're going to this bowl game. We've agreed." But all the official announcements will be next Sunday. I can't imagine getting benched and then going to the draft. So where does Rattler transfer to? I don't have a good answer for you. Does Hendon Hooker leave Tennessee to go to the draft? What does Bo Nix do? Because I said Auburn, Tennessee for previously. Does he go to Texas A&M? Or does Jimbo really trust Haynes King? Does he potentially go to a place like Wisconsin? Not really known for quarterbacks, but had a lot of success with Russell Wilson. I don't know. I don't know who Rattler goes to. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. Pitt will need a quarterback. I'm talking about Kenny Pickett. Florida won't need a quarterback. Florida State will need a quarterback because Jordan Travis stinks. So there's teams that need QBs. I couldn't tell you. Rattler to Ole Miss, I like that. I actually really like that a lot. If Kiffin doesn't leave, that's a great. Swamp and McGee's writing haikus in my chat. I know it's not a haiku. That's actually a great idea. Second round pick, man, I don't know. He got benched, and he played like crap. He was playing terribly. Did OU just kick a field goal? What are you doing? So I don't know. I don't think he gets picked. This is a terrible draft because we came in and it was like Rattler, Sam Howell, who's had a rough season. I did see Dylan Gabriel enter the portal. He'll be an interesting one. Matt Corral's played himself into the first round, yes. Now, has Matt Corral played himself in the first round because he's such a great future NFL QB, or is it because this class stinks? I couldn't tell you, but he's had an incredible season and really turned his career around after 2019 when who was their coach? Matt Luke was benching him for John Reese Plumlee. And yeah, it's just heck of a career to Matt Corral. Congrats to him. The Heisman Final Three will be announced next week. UT, Texas, I don't know. I said earlier, I don't think they'll take him back after he decommits, but maybe. I mean, they need a QB because Hudson Card and Casey Thompson, not the guys. Just not those guys. Okay. Leave your guys' opinion on the overtime rules. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Is there anybody here that likes the new overtime? Will Rogers? No. Will Rogers had a heck of a year, but he put up numbers with Mike Leach. Okay, cool. Will Rogers has a bright future at Mississippi State, but he needs to be more than what he's shown. Because right now he's just shown to be, and I can't even remember some of these Texas Tech quarterbacks from like Seth Dagey. You know, that kind of guy. Okay, so we got one that likes the overtime rules. Why? It's not fun to watch. I think it's more suspenseful when you have a drive, not just trading 2-point plays. What I equate it to is like the shootout in the NHL. Because in hockey, I want a team to win based on their hockey skill, not a skills comp. And I think a 2-point conversion is just a skills comp between offensive coordinators. Like defense, they're abysmal to watch sometimes. Aiden Hutchinson for Heisman. He threw his name in the hat today. He was awesome. Jordan Davis is certainly there. Bryce Young certainly there. Stroud put up with some numbers today. I don't know how the Heisman committee will take those numbers because he did put up almost 400 yards. To me, it seemed there were a lot of empty yards. There were a lot of empty yards, but I don't know. I don't think he'll be over. That we can all agree on. The NFL OT rule, it's so annoying. But a two-loss team makes the playoffs this year. Yes. Because I'll tell you how. So let's say we go into next week with a top 4 of Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincinnati. Oklahoma State's at number 5. Notre Dame's at number 6. Oklahoma State wins tonight, loses to Baylor next week, which could happen. Baylor's a good team. So they have 2 losses. They're out because they won't have enough quality wins. And then let's say Michigan loses to Iowa, which could happen because that game's not going to be high scoring. And when games aren't high scoring, there's a lot of variance. And Alabama loses to UGA, I think you could see Alabama in there. Although I wouldn't put Alabama in there. What's their best win this year? Ole Miss? That was a really good win. What's their second best win? Mississippi State? Arkansas? Like, I don't know. Yeah, but that's what they're going to do. I am agreeing with you. I'm the Alabama guy on the Voice of College Football. I agree with you. Alabama played really badly tonight. And they played bad against LSU. Offense looked pretty good against Arkansas. I don't know. It's hard to judge. I would say no. But that seems really unfair to Oklahoma State. If they beat top 10 Oklahoma, a top 10 Baylor team next week, I think they would get in over Notre Dame. But I think they're going to need some help. So, again, let's go through the scenarios. So you got Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincy. If Alabama loses and knocks them out, then yeah, I mean, maybe it's going to be a debate. So I would say no, because it's not one of those things where if Oklahoma State wins out, they're in. Yes, Aiden Hutchinson had an incredible season. I just don't know if they'll give it to a high defensive player. And if they were to give it to a defensive player, Jordan Davis and Will Anderson would really be high on that list as well. Would Okie State be a 7-point? I don't know. I don't play that. I don't think like that. I don't think so because I think who's better, Oklahoma State or Notre Dame? And you can say Oklahoma State, and I would agree with you, but how much better is Oklahoma State than Notre Dame? I wouldn't say by a lot. And Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. I know the final score was 24-13. That game wasn't. That game was a comfortable game for Cincinnati. If Auburn had a healthy QB, they might win today. Yeah, but how many times is it going to get to 9 overtimes? We've literally had one fun overtime game at the Power 5 level in the last, decade? And because everyone had so much fun watching that LSU game, Georgia would kill Cincy. But I think we're going to get Cincy, Michigan, which is fun because if for all the SEC people in here, Luke Fickell hates Michigan because he's an Ohio State guy. No, this is a goofy year. This is one of those goofy years. Everyone's comparing this year to 2007. The year Boston College was number 2. South Florida was number 2. Missouri got to number 1. Kansas got to number 2. But what everyone kind of forgets about that year is it ended with LSU, Ohio State. Yeah, he's been. I talked about that a lot last week. He's just he's incredible. And I see people complaining about TV ratings. Why do you care? Because are we going to pretend that any group of teams in there isn't going to lose or going to beat Georgia? Plus, how many great semifinal games have we had? Let's go through them. First year, you had Alabama, Ohio State. That was a great game. 2015, you had two crummy games. 2016, you had two crummy games. 2017, you had Oklahoma, Georgia. That was a great game. The playoff just is most of the time. The playoff semis are kind of terrible. You had Clemson, Ohio State. That was a fun one. The semifinals for the playoff just they aren't usually great. I don't know because and I've been trying to defend Cincy here, but because of the teams they play, I don't know. Now we'll see against Houston because Houston's pretty good. No, they'll get killed because they'll be the 4 seed and they'll get killed. And the 4 seed's gonna get killed no matter what. It's kind of like 2019 when we had LSU, we had Ohio State, and we had Clemson. Those were by far the 3 best teams. And I OU got the 4 seed. Utah almost got the 4 seed if they would have beaten Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. Anybody that got that 4 seed was going to get murdered by LSU, Clemson, or Ohio State. This year, whoever gets that 4 seed is going to get killed by Georgia. They just are. Like, Michigan, that scares me is UGA. Yeah, I think your defense could do a good job against UGA. The issue is you ran the ball really well against Ohio State. Your quarterback's still incredibly limited. And I like Cade. I think Cade's had some really good games this year. You're not running the ball on Georgia. So Cade's going to have to make some plays, and he can't make those plays. So, I mean, some years, who was it? Alabama was a 4 seed, and they played Clemson 20, it had to have been 2017. And they won, but most of the time, yeah, the 4 seed just does get killed. So I know, incredible analysis by me, but the 4 seed, whoever it is they're just going to get shoved into the ground. I mean, and it could be whoever. I don't think it'll be Cincy though. I think Cincy's going to get a top 3. Man, if you remember that game, that wasn't on Baker. That game was on Lincoln. Lincoln made a lot of. That was a crappy game by Lincoln in the fourth quarter. Fair. If Alabama beats Georgia, no, then Michigan's the 1. Maybe actually, no, I don't know. I think Georgia is pretty much the guaranteed 1 seed, unless Alabama kills them, and it's like a 31-13 or like a 28-13, 24-13. Like, unless Alabama wins by double digits and it doesn't feel that close, I think Georgia's your 1 seed. They're going to get top 3. They'll get top 3. I mean, who else is for the number 4? Cincy, Notre Dame? Well, they already beat Notre Dame. Oklahoma State, they're better than Oklahoma State. Yeah, I'm completely serious. Who else who's gonna jump them? If Alabama were to lose. This is again a hypothesis on Alabama losing next week. If they're gonna lose, who jumps them? Okay, you're going on the if Georgia loses next week. I know. I think they're the 1 because the committee's going to go. Alabama lost to, or Georgia lost to Alabama in a title game. Michigan lost to Michigan State, who's not a good team, or not a great team. They're a good team. Michigan's easily number 2 after today. Tough to argue with that. They certainly are number 2. I really wanted Wisconsin to win. I thought that rematch would be fun. Over Cincy, the team Cincinnati beat in Notre Dame. Notre Dame has nothing on Cincy. Well, it does, unfortunately. I'm getting a little snarky. That's not nice. Yeah, unfortunately, it does. And it should matter. I mean, no. All playoff semifinal games suck. Like, for the most part. I mean, you've had a couple good ones. For the most part, they stink. I don't know why the Big Ten would care. I mean, the Wisconsin defense is better statistically. Wisconsin defense can get stops without relying on turnovers. They didn't give up 400 yards to Purdue. So hang on, let me get this straight. And I'm getting snippy here, but Notre Dame has a lot on Cincinnati. If only we had a way to decide who was better, Notre Dame or Cincinnati. Like if they could play a football game, I don't know, maybe at Notre Dame even. Play them at Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Cincy at Notre Dame. And we could see who wins, and then we'll know who's better. If only we could do that. Oh, wait, we did. And I'm defending Cincy a lot here, but they're better than Notre Dame. We know this. They played. And sometimes head-to-head shouldn't matter. Michigan is a better team than Michigan State. We can all agree Michigan State won that day. But when we're trying to compare resumes, the head-to-head should matter. 12? That sounds about right. Maybe a little lower, maybe like 9.5, 10.5. But yeah, that sounds about. I remember that. The games have to matter. They have to matter. You guys are talking like the games don't matter now. The games have to matter. I don't care if it was in September. The games matter. It's ridiculous that we're talking about making the games not matter. This is how crazy things happen. Yeah, that Notre Dame team that beat Virginia Tech by 3, North Carolina by 10. Ooh, they beat up on Navy. Beat UVA, beat up on Georgia Tech. Cool. You're right, they're not. They're not comparable. Cincinnati 24, Notre Dame 13. You're right. You're right. We do have a way to. They're not comparable because Notre Dame's better, or not Notre Dame. Cincinnati's better. I can pull up the stats right here. Kyron Williams 3.5 yards a carry. Desmond Ridder went for almost 300 yards. Ford 4 yards a carry. I pull up the stats. Who's better? Let me see. Well, no, they outgained them by 50 yards. They outscored them by 11. So I think I can say who's better. You asked earlier if Oklahoma State controls their own destiny. I don't think they do, but they certainly have an argument. Sort of like 2011 when it was Alabama LSU. They certainly have an argument. I mean, you beat a top 10 OU team tonight, no matter how fraudulent some of us think OU is. You beat a top 10 Baylor team. Yeah, I mean, they certainly have an argument. But I don't know. Like, we look at those games from a couple months ago. It'll be interesting. This is an interesting philosophy if Alabama were to lose next week, which I think we're all. Well, then the system's stupid. I mean, I'm not. I am getting snippy with you, and I do apologize for that. That's mean of me. But then the system's dumb. No, they never do rematches in bowl games. I think the last time they did a rematch was like Nebraska Washington years ago. But yeah, no, and then if that's the case, then the system's stupid. It just is. Snippy. I don't mean to be snippy. I just get passionate about things. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I keep seeing you put Ole Miss and Texas A&M would beat Georgia. Ole Miss would not beat Georgia. Ole Miss hasn't scored more than 31 points since the Arkansas game. I know most of you are adults. I just don't want to be rude. Like, I'm just trying not to be rude. I'm sorry for that. They would not. Ole Miss hasn't scored more than 31 points since the Arkansas game. And if they're playing Georgia, you'll probably need to score 20, 25 points, and they're not doing that. I'm going longer if I want, but you guys are fun tonight, and I love it. I love talking college football, even with Anonymous. We'll go for another little bit here, but then anybody texting me saying, hey, get off? No one's texting me to get off, so I'm going to keep going. America wants Gators versus Canes in the Gasparilla Bowl. Sure. Van Dyke's been a good quarterback for mine. They've had him found something in that kid after Derek King didn't play so well in his 6th year of eligibility. That man's my age. Or is he a year younger than me, I think. Thanks, man. We'll keep going for a little bit because Mark he's texted me in the past, I need to get off. And that's what's been with like 6 people watching. He's been like, hey, get off because people need to go. But I didn't realize you could do multiple simulcasts on one channel. So I'm going to keep going because I'm having a lot of fun. And we're almost at halftime. So Iowa over Wisconsin. I wouldn't. Iowa doesn't have the running game Wisconsin does. They don't have the defense. The thing they do better than Wisconsin is they force turnovers. Wisconsin isn't very good at forcing turnovers. And that could be a problem when you're trying to upset a team. That's why Iowa does pull those upsets, because they force turnovers, and that's what you got to do. So I don't know. I don't know. Iowa, I'm so excited for Spider-Man. Iowa is an interesting team. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball at all. Because CJ Stroud today in the Ohio State offense was moving the ball okay, 20-20. So I don't know. Yeah, Bo Nix isn't better than Matt Corral, but he beat him. Will Rogers. Didn't Will Rogers lose to Memphis? Yeah, I really wanted Wisconsin to win that game just because I think Wisconsin's found something since they lost to Michigan and they were 1-3. I think they've found play. I think they found a system that works. Now, that won't work for them to win like a national title, but to get a lot of wins this year. And that Braylon Allen kid, Jonathan Taylor was great. Melvin Gordon was great. He's the next one. Someone commented 4.5. Is anybody watching on the Alabama channel? They are. So you are. They're going to have Jamison. They're going to have Bryce. But they're also going to have that offensive line who got caved in by Auburn, got caved in by LSU, got caved in by Florida. Yeah, I would have thought of that a touchdown. After today, especially, I thought it'd be a touchdown. But we'll see. Oklahoma picks off Spencer Sanders. That's also the reason I guess I don't love Oklahoma State is I don't love their quarterback. Like I think Stetson Bennett, Desmond Ritter, Bryce Young, obviously. I think even Cade McNamara is better than. I think he's even better than Spencer Sanders. Yeah, 7 points is more reasonable, I think, that to me than put my remote down. Than 4.5. That sounds low, but 7 seems about right. I think the Alabama defense will keep them in the game for maybe the entire time because their run defense is really good, and Stetson Bennett's going to have to make some plays. And I don't know. 17. We have seen some wacky spreads though in big, like Michigan State, Ohio State was like a 19.5 point spread. So I see the JT Daniels question. Will Tennessee be better 8-4? Well, 8-4 is only one win. So, you change the result against, I don't know. But the tough thing for Tennessee is they have to play Georgia and they have to play Alabama every year. So there's 2 losses. Right off the bat, there's 2. You got Florida. Most of the time, that's been 3. If every time basically, besides 2016. Yeah, 2016 because 2015 was the Will Grier year. And who knows? And Kentucky looks to be pretty good. So I don't know. The thing with Josh Heupel, and we'll see, is he's going to put up points against bad teams. Against Missouri, South Carolina. He's going to put up those points. He's going to struggle sometimes against these better teams. So we'll see. I don't know. But he definitely had a good year this year. There's no denying that. He had a really good year this year. JT's been hurt, and there's no reason to pull Stetson Bennett. He's been playing well enough. Auburn stops on 4th and 7. They don't let him drive 98 yards. They had plenty of time. I think they had plenty of time. That's fair. I don't know if that'd be the... Oh, that's just your pick. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Is that a catch? Holy cow, touchdown Oklahoma. 24-24 going into the half. Fool if you pull Bennett out of the line. I mean, Stetson Bennett, it isn't like last year where he clearly struggled against some good teams and JT came in and just lit the world on fire. Stetson's been really steady. And what message is Kirby going to send to his team if he's what kind of message is Kirby setting for his team if he's pulling a quarterback because even though he's not playing bad at all? They absolutely did. They should have gone for 2 when they scored in overtime. Yep, poor clock management. Ugh, going to have to talk to Mark about that one, not me. This game is a lot of fun. I'm not writing you off. I'm just kind of agreeing with the comments because anytime you have the best coach in college football history, and okay, fine, here, I'll make a case for Alabama. Anytime you have the best coach in college football history, you have the talent Alabama has, especially defensively, with Will Anderson, who I love Will Anderson. When you have the talent they do defensively and offensively, there is a chance anything can happen for 60 minutes when you have the talent that Alabama has and the head coach that Alabama has. Now, on the flip side, we've had 13 weeks of watching these two teams play, and Alabama, off the offensive line for Alabama and the run game. The run game struggled not just against Auburn or against whoever. They struggled against Mercer in the run game. And Bryce Young's going to have to make some plays. And he's going to make a lot of them because George is going to put up, I think we can safely say in today's college football, George is probably going to put up, at least 20 points? 20, 24 points? Can Bryce Young score 27? Can he get a cheap shot against Jameson Williams down the field? Can they maybe get a defensive touchdown? It's going to be a very difficult game. But I don't I know I've been saying like Georgia's going to win next week, but I don't think that I've completely written Alabama off because of the coach and because of the talent, even though the talent has underperformed a ton this year. No clue. People have talked about pods. People have talked about reshuffling divisions. I just don't know what they would do. They're playing Oklahoma. We've talked about this Bedlam game. The joke that I like to tell, and I don't remember who I from. It was Roger Sherman on Twitter. There are two outcomes of Bedlam. OU by a lot, OU by a little. No matter how good Oklahoma State is, they always lose to Oklahoma. With the exception being 2011, which was the best Oklahoma State team ever. And I think it was 2014, Tyreek Hill returned a punt for a touchdown to win the game. Other than that, since Mike Gundy's been there, since 2005, it's been OU by a lot, OU by a little. Depends what you do. If you do the pod system and then you do still 9 games. So if Georgia loses to Alabama with the top 4, I think Georgia's still the number 1 seed. Unless it's a butt kicking. I think they still probably are the number 1 seed because I just think they are. Unless maybe Michigan though, but it's going to be. I think it'll be Georgia. Man, oh God, if Alabama wins, okay. And that opinion I do kind of agree with. I do agree with. But I think it would be. Okay, so I said Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Cincy. I think would be your top 4. I think that would be your top 4. No. I had Cincy as the 4 in this certain hypothetical where Alabama wins next week. They'd be the 4, if not out. No, they would play each team once, and then you would play 5 games or 6 games. They would probably do it like an NFL style, where the NFL you play, but because they would only do, and they'd really probably have to go to 9 games. But if they were to stay at 8 games, you play the other 3 teams in your division, so you have 3 games. You play the team that finished in the same spot you did in each division. So you play. So if you finish in 3rd place, you play the 3rd place team in the one division, 3rd place team in another division, 3rd place team in the other division, and then you completely play a different division. If I hope that made sense. You'd play your own division, you'd play another division, and you'd play the 2 teams in the divisions you didn't play that finish in the same spot. So like if you were 1st place, you'd play the 2 first place teams. I don't think they do that because that would lead to some really uneven schedules. Because then if like Alabama wins their division and Georgia's in a different division, they'll be playing Georgia and they'll be playing, Oklahoma. And so, yeah, but if the SEC is going to 16 games, you're not playing 15 games. What I don't like about the Big 12 is their conference championship game. Because I think it's silly that no matter what, you have to beat a team twice. He should, because no quarterback's running away with it, and he's been incredible. He should. Him and Jordan Davis should have options. And there's some running backs out there that aren't getting enough love either. But they're not playing on great teams. Like Tyler Beatty. He's having an incredible season, but he's on a pretty bad team. So he won't get love. Kenneth Walker will get some love. So, Bryce Young can clinch it with a great performance next week, but Will Anderson. No. I was talking about in a what I don't like about the Big 12. But if you're talking about for a national championship, potentially, they would have to beat Georgia twice. I was talking to Mr. Bays here about how he likes how they do their conference, and I like that too. The only thing I don't like about it is you have to beat a team twice. Like if OU wins tonight, they have to beat Oklahoma State again, which I think is dumb. Oof. You know what? I'm sorry about that. That is tough. That is tough. But hey, you know what? I don't think you probably didn't go to the game expecting a good game today. So, and it's cost them championship appearances. Not having a title game cost them a chance at the playoff in 2014. Because if Baylor or TCU get a chance to play in a Big 12 championship, they get in over Ohio State. Now, the committee was proven right putting Ohio State in because they ended up winning a national championship. But if TCU or Baylor gets to play a Big 12 title game, they win the national title in 2014. So, I don't know. They were extremely wounded today. TJ Finley, I was shocked he was still out there. So one of my friends tweeted out, like, who does Auburn have for a backup? And I had to tell him, well, this is their backup. Who their third string? And I Googled it, and I can't even remember the guy's name. And he was the quarterback at Bowling Green State. Last year he was 2019. He threw 6 touchdowns, 11 picks. Yeah, and that's what I would do for the SEC. But then you're leading to some really unbalanced divisions because there's not the same parity in college football, but there isn't. And usually none, because for the last half decade it's been OU, and they've been so much better than everybody. It's not like this year, where this year again Oklahoma wins tonight, they would still have a shot at the playoff. I think we can all agree with that. They would still have a shot, but then they got to beat a pretty good Okie State team again, which is tough to do. Ask 2011 LSU. And that was them not having a championship game that cost them. Having a championship game hasn't cost them yet, because it's been like OU, TCU. Last year, neither team, it was Oklahoma, Iowa State, neither team was going to make it. Oklahoma, Texas, the Kyler year. Texas was good, but they weren't quite at that level yet, and they're not still. You're blew it in the World Series. Oh, the College World Series. Duh, I'm dumb. How much more battery do I have on my laptop? I still got a lot. 2013, 2019, World Series. Yeah, that's tough. And then you could also argue Baylor got snubbed because Baylor beat Ole Miss, or beat TCU. But yeah, I would agree that year TCU was probably the ultimate snub. However, they were proven right because Ohio State won a championship. Well, it doesn't, but because the Big 12 has been kind of mediocre for so long. I just don't like that format. I don't like that you automatically have to beat a team twice. That's basically what I'm saying. I just don't think it's, and sometimes you have to. Georgia and Auburn in 2017, for instance, Georgia had to beat Auburn, or Auburn had to beat Georgia twice, and they did. They beat them at home, and then they played in the SEC title game. And I'm sorry, what's our Auburn friend's name? Rand Stokes. I'm sorry, and then they beat him. So I think it's just goofy, but and again, with 16 teams, that's not going to happen. Would Dabo coach in the NFL? Well, he said he was going to if college players ever got paid. So, I mean, hopefully. I'm kidding. No, probably not. I don't think Dabo. What the thing with NFL coaches is you have to be willing to not be the star of your team. Everyone likes Sean McVay. He's not the star of the Rams. Pete Carroll was never the star of the Seahawks. Bill Belichick was a huge proponent of the Patriots, but Tom Brady was the star. Dabo likes being in the spotlight. That's why he runs in front of his team when they do the cool entrance down the hill in Death Valley, the other Death Valley. Death Valley with a lowercase d and a lowercase v. Him and PJ Fleck really love being the center of attention. I don't think that would work in the NFL. Dabo only leaving for Bama. Now I've had that. That's a conversation everybody's had. It's kind of like when Mike Krzyzewski leaves Duke, who was going to take the job. And I remember in like 2012, it was going to be Shaka Smart, and then it was like, oh, it's going to be Brad Stevens, and then who knows now? Oh, it's going to be John Shire. But the name, it's like, who is going to replace Saban? I don't know. Cristobal? I mean, he's pretty good at it. So, I mean, it was Gurley for so long. It was Gurley. And then they kind of became kind of that forgotten team that was really good, but they weren't ever a championship contender. So I guess then it was McVay, but this year it's Stafford. And no, it's been Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was the star of that team because he's going to go down as the top, 5 defensive player of all time? He's nuts. Why have conference championships if a team already has gone in without it? Oh, yeah, money. I mean, yeah. Agree. He's a culture guy. I think he would do – I think he's a really good college coach. And for a guy that was a wide receivers coach and they were like, hey, you're going to be our new coach, he's done a remarkable job. As much as I don't like him. Jerry is the star of the Cowboys, and that's why they suck and have stunk for a while. Did I say Jared Goff? I didn't say Jared Goff, did I? If I did, oh my goodness gracious. I thought I said Gurley and then Aaron Donald. Please tell me I didn't say Jared Goff. Well, Saban came from the NFL. Dabo was a wide receivers coach. Ryan Day was a coordinator. Brian Kelly came from Cincy. I don't know. I mean, they can come from all over the place. Oh, thank God. Jared Goff's like 0-16 without McVay. So that might be a big issue. Why? It hasn't stopped him the last couple years. No. Well, maybe. My money would be on Mario Cristobal. That would be my bet. My bet would be, I see someone else say Dabo, and my bet would be Mario Cristobal. Because the dude can recruit Power 5 to Power 5. And I was just going through because Brian Kelly came from Cincy, but of course that's not Power 5. Ryan Day coordinator, Harbaugh NFL, Saban NFL. Because I'm assuming that doesn't count because Saban was at, of course, LSU, but he came from the NFL, so that doesn't count. Brian Kelly from Cincy. He's a great recruiter. I don't think he's a great in-game coach. Because he did a great job. Why leave someplace you're really comfortable and having a lot of success, like he was at Stanford for so long through the McCaffrey era, and now it's just he doesn't play smart football. The football he plays is boring. It's not attractive, and they haven't had a lot of success in a few years. They had no offense because TJ Finley was hobbled and they couldn't run the ball. With a minute 47-ish left, Tank Bigsby ran out of bounds on second down. So Alabama got to save their last timeout for a third down stop, which they stuffed Tank for I think like -4 yards. So they had no timeout. So there should have been 40 seconds left less. There should have been a minute left. They got the ball instead with a minute 40 left and drove down the field and scored. Go to overtime. Drove the ball 98 yards down the field. Go to overtime. Alabama scores a touchdown. Auburn scores a touchdown. Should have gone for 2 because you weren't going to trade scores with Alabama. And then they just lost. They didn't have the offense to do anything today. Yes, he was. And he was very good at both those places. Yeah, Big East. Because who was his quarterback? Was it Tony Pike, I think was his QB? They went undefeated and they got killed by Florida in the Sugar Bowl, I think it was. They got murdered by Tebow. That was not a fair matchup to them, though, because that Florida team could have won a title. And they gave him to Cincy. That was so mean. I don't think the issue for Miami is how much money are you going to give Cristobal, because Phil Knight can write a check. They'll write a check. He'll be able to write a check that can match anything Miami can give at this point. And who knows? He's got it good up in Oregon. They've got a really talented freshman quarterback. I know Anthony Brown's played this year. I can't imagine him starting next year. Will Bill Clark from UAB get a job? Sort of like what I talked about with Jeff Lebby. It depends who leaves for what job. I think he deserves one. It depends who leaves for what job. Because with all these programs, even like Virginia Tech's open, people are going to leave their jobs, and he'll slip in and get one of those jobs. So he deserves one, though, as a likelihood. What do you mean? Agreed. Yes, you will. You'll get hyped 365 or whatever days from now. You'll be all right. Yes, you will. Soon enough, Auburn will be back. I don't love Brian Harsin, but I'm sure they'll be fine. Yeah, Phil Knight will do whatever he can to take his money. Miami's got a good quarterback. I like this Van Dyke kid. He's really scored a lot. He's thrown for a lot of yards and scored a lot of points lately. Yeah, Oregon's going to run the Pac-12 until further notice. The next step for Cristobal is going to be not dropping a stupid game, which he's had issues with. He dropped a stupid game to a 3-8 Stanford team. Losing to Utah on the road is one thing. Utah's a good program. They're really consistent. So, I'm trying to figure out. Absolutely, they matter. I don't know. Take the job of Washington. When I heard that report, that was weird. Maybe. I mean, there's some outside stuff with Auburn and Harsin that we're not going to get into because I'm not dealing this conversation tonight, and we're talking football here. That might cost him the Auburn job this year. And if you know what I'm talking about, cool. We're not talking about it because that's just going to upset everybody, and it's going to get really nasty in here. So but Washington has the same policy. So I'm going to say no. But it was interesting that his name was even reported by people who I trust. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? I only pay attention to so many teams. I didn't realize his recruiting class but it's his first year. So first year recruiting, I don't often look at a ton. For instance, like the Missouri's head coach, his recruiting his first year was miserable. Second year, it was one of the better classes in Mizzou history. This year, they're like 14th or 15th. So we'll see what Harsin does down the road, if he's still there. And the thing with Auburn too, if Harsin does leave, that's just another big job that's open. Who do you get? Cristobal needs an elite offensive coordinator to make up. Yeah, probably. It's going to be a heck of a game because Anthony Richardson will start, and we'll see what this new coach has. It's 24-all at halftime. Aranda wouldn't leave Baylor for Washington. Joe Moorhead would be a good hire. Because Oregon's offense looks pretty good when Joe Moorhead's there. Am I a Yankee? No, I'm in Missouri. I'm a Cardinal. Harsin, a great play caller, was never a great recruiter. I'll take your word for it because he was at Boise, and it's hard to judge recruiting at Boise because they're never going to be, they're never going to have elite recruiting classes at Boise. Is the Pac-12 stuck? No. You have to do what the Big Ten did when the Big Ten was kind of in a rough spot. You had Ohio State, and then you had everybody else way down here. Wisconsin occasionally was really good. It was like Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan State. You need to make good hires. They brought in James Franklin, who's a good coach despite his bad year this year. They brought in Harbaugh. They brought in Rutgers, brought back now Greg Schiano. You have to make good hires, and we'll see. And unfortunately, the Pac-12 is not going to get that level of hire. So you got to bring in good young guys that will elevate your programs. I think Oregon State hired a really good coach, Jonathan Smith. He's been very good there. He's taken a program that when Mike Riley left the first time for Nebraska has been just stuck in the middle of nowhere. And now they're going to go bowling back-to-back seasons. They've beaten Oregon once. He's done an awesome job there. UCLA should be a good team. USC should also never be a bad team because they're of the recruiting landscape. Because of the recruiting landscape out there, they should be better. They just never are. They stink. And, UCLA's not having a bad year, but like everyone kind of hyped up this year because, and they beat LSU because they had so many seniors. I mean, Sam Pittman was a hell of a hire for Arkansas. And I didn't think it when the not hired was announced. I kind of like everybody were like, really, Sam Pittman? Okay, man, he's done a great job. Shane Beamer's done a really good job this year, just getting them to a bowl game. Late 2000s, Pac-12. Yeah, you had Pete Carroll. You had Mike Riley was doing a really good job with the Rogers brothers and Sean Mannion. You had Sark at Washington, and now they got better because they got Peterson. You had Pete Carroll. You had some guys. And they're all gone. Arizona State and Arizona. Who cares? Well, my brother goes to Arizona State, so I should care. He is. He's doing just enough. Heisman leaders right now. When the Alabama game ended, I basically hopped on here. So off the top of my head, Bryce Young, Kenneth Walker. I can't narrow it down to 3, so I'm going to give 5. Kenneth Walker, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Jordan Davis, Kenny Pickett. With Hayden Hutchinson right there. Yeah, Bryce Young's from California. Well, Kansas State did. They got Chris Kleiman. Mel Tucker isn't going anywhere. They got Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, and he's done okay there. They win the games they're supposed to, lose the games they're supposed to. I don't know. There's also some other places. James Madison has been a really good program at the FCS level. So there's a lot of places that you could go to hire a head coach. I'm not sure where you know. Stroud deserves a pension. That man put up empty numbers today against. He almost threw for 400 yards, and then he'd get to the 20, and he didn't know which way to read. So Stroud will be fine, I think. They aren't going to be hurting for wide receiver at Ohio State for the next while. My God, I said I was going to get off almost an hour ago. Holy cow. You guys have been awesome tonight. Love you all. Because as I tell my friends and because I'm just on the SEC channel and the Alabama channel. And as I tell those guys, I could do this. I could talk to my shower about college football for hours. Just walking through different situations. This is awesome. You guys are the best. Bring in the whole staff. It'd be interesting. That'd be fun to do. I would love for a program to try. I'd love for a program like not like an Auburn level program. I'm trying to think like a lower level. I'd like Cal to try it. Like Cal, bring in, and I like Justin Wilcox. I think he's done a fine job. They've just been really limited with Chase Gerbers at quarterback. Bring in the entire bring in the entire North Dakota State staff. See what happens. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Swampy, man, come on. Let's be smarter than that. We're just here to have fun. Bring the whole staff. I'd love for like Cal to do that, or I'm thinking like the SEC equivalent. It's like Missouri to do that. That'd be fun. Or like Vanderbilt. We've talked that about that a bunch this week, or this last couple hours. I don't think they do, but when you have Nick Saban, you have we were just talking about some hypothetical stuff. When you have the talent they do, even though they haven't put it together on both sides of the football for almost the entire season, since the Ole Miss game, really, or since the Mississippi State game. They can. I don't think they will. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to most of the games next week. I think the only game I'm really dreading to watch is Iowa, Michigan, because it's just going to be ugly. If you like the 1960s, 70s, you're going to love Iowa, Michigan, because they got both teams have pretty decent running backs and change of attitude, ethic, and direction. I mean, I don't think USC will just because it's not flashy enough, but I agree. USC needs to figure out what they want to do. They need a plan. Like any sports team or any business, but I'm going to stick with sports. You need a plan, no matter what the sport is, baseball, hockey, college football. What is your program and what do you want to do? Because even then, when results stink, again, I'll use what I know best in the SEC, Mizzou. Mizzou stunk this year, but I know what the plan is, and so I can forgive some of it because I know the plan. And if the plan doesn't work, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I know the plan. USC doesn't have a plan, and it doesn't appear they have a plan really when they're hiring somebody. They need somebody that can, with a plan. Dave Aranda, your North Dakota State example, which I really like. So we'll see. USC is one of 3, maybe 4 jobs in the country with Georgia and Miami that can walk off the bus and can drive to any recruit and pick up a top 5 class. And they stink. And who was their coach? Clay Helton had the worst recruiting class in the Pac-12. One of the worst. Lower in Oregon State, Washington State. If you can't pull guys to USC over Pullman, Washington, or Corvallis, Oregon, lovely cities, I'm sure, great fan bases, you stink at recruiting. And at USC, that should never be an issue. Oh, the 30 for 30? Yeah, they're always great. Most of the 30 for 30s are really good. And that's what they did. They had Pete Carroll, who was a star and got stars. Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. I've seen so many docs about that game, and he kind of did, didn't he? Matt Leinart, they had Lendale White, Dwayne Jarrett. They had so many stars, and even when Kiffin was there, they had Marquise Lee, they had Robert Woods, and just lately, they had Juju with Darnold. They have London. They have Drake London this year, but it's just there hasn't been a team full of stars, and they should be. People should be wanting to stay up late to watch USC. go, USC, they're really, really good, and they're, tricky game in Washington tonight. That's how it should be in the Pac-12, but it's just not. He did. Pete Carroll, which is a hire not a lot of people liked, if I remember right. I was 6 years old when he was hired, so I don't remember it from watching the news. But I was hired. A lot of people were like, and he turned out to be great. He was awesome. And they won a title. They were in it every year. It was a shock when they lost. They would always lose on Corvallis on a Thursday night. It was weird. They would always lose to Oregon State. Mike Riley had that man's number. They did. That's why Reggie Bush still is not technically a Heisman winner. Although, if Reggie Bush, what Reggie Bush did in 2005, he did today, it would be no big deal. So, whatever. Yeah, Pete Carroll, I don't love Pete Carroll because I was a St. Louis Rams fan. But yeah, no, he did awesome things for US. And USC was a program I hated when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old in 2006, 2007, 2000. So I was like, yeah, they lost. John David Booty threw 3 picks. Let's go. But no, he was an awesome coach, and they need to bring some of that back. They've never really had it. I mean, they've had some good years. Kiffin had the 1 year with Barkley, and Helton had the 1 year with Darnold, but they haven't been a dominant program in so long, and they should be dominant. It should be every year you look at the Pac-12 title game, and it is USC and Oregon. Every year. Utah, good program. Love Kyle Whittingham. I wish they had made the playoffs a few years ago and gotten murdered by LSU, but we could have had like a few weeks to talk about how good Kyle Whittingham is a coach, because I like when programs like that get their time in the limelight. But well, yeah, Georgia hasn't won 1 in 40, Tennessee 30, OU 20, Auburn 10. So you're not completely wrong with your comment. Now, I won't disagree with you. But I don't think the fans of USC or Florida will care because they won titles. And that's all that matters. Fire Mike Bobo. Yeah, he probably should be gone. Keep Derek Mason around. He's a heck of a D coordinator. Had a great night tonight. But as far as tonight goes, there was nothing he could do. Alabama's defense showed up. He had a hobbled quarterback. What was he to do? Tonight was not the night to fire Mike Bobo. Last week was the reason to fire Mike Bobo. What a catch! I've just seen my little Sports Center thing. What a catch by Corey Brooks to tie that game. Holy cow! We've been going on for 2 hours. This is awesome. Yeah, I know what you meant. Man, what a crazy day. Did anybody think Ohio State could beat Michigan or lose to Michigan today? I certainly didn't. Especially when Michigan scored, got a stop, and we're driving again, and then threw that awful pick. McNamara threw that terrible pick. I was like, oh no, Michigan's back. I think I had Ohio State 35-24, or Ohio State's going to win this game. And they just kept getting stops. Balls out, defensive touchdown, Oklahoma. Or is it a safety? Safety. For those of you not watching that game. And I'm going to get off here before too long so I can watch the second half of Bedlam. And they That would have been crazy. That would have been nuts. Yeah, I think Michigan State. I think Michigan was a tougher matchup for Michigan, just because Michigan's pass rush is so good, and they finally had a defensive coordinator that would do other things, like like Don Brown. God bless him. He's a new coach at UMass, but his strategy of we're gonna blitz everybody, and we're going to leave our corners on islands against Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell. Yeah, that strategy works against Maryland and Rutgers. That strategy doesn't work against Ohio State and Dwayne Haskins or Justin Fields and Chris Olave. And they would get murdered. And they finally were like, today they just like, we're going to let everything happen in front of us. CJ, it's cold. CJ's not used to this atmosphere. CJ's not used to this atmosphere. Let's see what happens. And they did, and they did a really good job today. Good for Michigan. Honestly, I've said enough. Good for Michigan, man. It's cool when the big college football rivalries are rivalries. Like Auburn, Alabama has been pretty good for the most part. I mean, in Auburn and Tuscaloosa, it's ugly. But in Auburn, kick six. 2015, I know Bama won 29-13. 2017, Auburn wins. 2019, Auburn wins. 21, 4 overtime game. It's nice to see that, and hopefully Michigan, Ohio State can kind of continue that way. We'll see. We'll see next year. I wouldn't bet on it right now, but we'll see what Michigan's quarterback situation looks like next year, because Cade is a junior, I think. They have J.J. McCarthy, who every time he came in and ran the ball, I was like, oh, God, little fumble like you did against Michigan State. They did. They looked. That was the best game Michigan's played. Man, since I can remember. I've been watching college football now for what was my first year, just where I would sit on my couch and watch college football all day. Probably 2007 when I was 11. That was the best game I've ever seen Michigan play. Oh, that crowd was electric. I never had thought of Michigan as like this. I know it's huge, and so that's obviously going to be a big reason why. My favorite team's never won a national championship, so. But I've never thought of them as like a huge, like I've never thought of Michigan as like LSU or Clemson or even like Oregon, which has a crazy crowd, or Wisconsin, which has a crazy crowd. And if you've never been to a game day in Madison, go. But yeah, today that was a crazy atmosphere, and it was awesome to see. He did. He had an awful, and then he beat Wisconsin, which I know Wisconsin's an 8-14, but his road record against teams that were pretty solid was bad. He beat Penn State on the road, and now he's beaten Ohio State. So you gotta give Jim Harbaugh a ton of credit. And what's crazy about today's game is he won how he wants to win. Because when Shea Patterson got there, they changed their philosophy to be like, well, we're gonna win flashy. We're gonna, they brought in Josh Gaddis. They didn't play flashy football today, but they won. With UTSA losing to, I don't know. BYU might leap them. Yeah, it's all one level because it's built. I've been to Ann Arbor because my cousin plays soccer for Michigan. It's built into the ground, so it's really hard to do multi-levels because you're then building into the concrete, and you can't do that. So it's just like a big pit. Keep an eye on my laptop battery. So when it starts to die, it's probably when I'll jump. off. Yeah, no, I think BYU would jump them. This game is insane. You buy a lot, you buy a little. Every year. And look at that. Now we'll see what Spencer Sanders can do. Yeah, kind of like the Red Bull. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, the great debate. I'm going to say no right now, but I could see it. I don't know. I don't see them putting in a 2-loss team in the playoff if there's other 1-loss teams. But if you want to argue, do you really want to see Notre Dame or whatever in the playoff over Alabama? I would listen to your argument, but I would disagree with you because I think the games have to matter. I mean, I've talked about that tonight. I would think a 2-loss Bama is done, but don't know. Oh, I'm not saying they win. Like ugly is how like Iowa wins. Iowa, that's ugly. But Michigan today, when you just have an offensive line that is kicking the crap out of a defensive line, and you're running the ball 5-6 yards a carry, and you're doing cool things with your quarterback, it's not ugly. Iowa's ugly. Northwestern's ugly. That's beautiful old school power football. I just think next week's game is going to be ugly because Iowa's defense is pretty good. It's not Wisconsin, but it's pretty good. But man, Hassan Haskins, what a find by that staff, by the way. He's from by me. He's from Eureka. The only other Power 5 offer he got was Purdue. Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, I said this earlier. Iowa plays ugly, but you win 8 games, 9 games a year. So do what works. You can play ugly football and win a lot of games. Northwestern does it every other year. Limited quarterback play, because we're not going to trick ourselves into that Spencer Petras or Alex Padilla are good quarterbacks. But Tyler Goodson's a good running back. Your defense forces a lot of turnovers. I've been to Kinnick. I went to the game against Wisconsin in 2018. I love Kinnick. Oh, God. That's a great question. Probably Bama, just because of the committee. And if we're being honest with ourselves, probably Bama. I don't know, though. That is an excellent question. Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. No one's disagreeing. Sort of like last year. No one thinks Notre Dame's great. But who else are you putting in? Like they're going to be 11-1. They haven't beaten anybody good. They've kicked the crud out of a few bad teams, but I know we're making fun of Cincy's schedule, but like, who's Notre Dame beaten? They beat Purdue. I guess that's pretty good. They beat Wisconsin. They kicked the crud out of Wisconsin, but that was before Wisconsin figured out who they were. But I still got to give them credit for kicking the crud out of Wisconsin. They lost to Cincy. Barely beat Va Tech. Beat USC. Barely beat UNC. Beat Navy. UV. I'm seeing a bunch of 6-6 or a bit worse teams outside of Wisconsin and Purdue. So like Notre Dame, I don't know. What did I just say about Wisconsin? Oh, Wisconsin before, after that Notre Dame and Michigan game, decided Graham Mertz is awful, and we're just not giving him the ball. We're going to give him the ball to our 17-year-old freshman running back, and it worked. They've been on a pretty good run. They beat Purdue. They beat Nebraska. Of course, everybody beats Nebraska, but He was really good yesterday, though. He was really good yesterday. I think he's an okay running back. I agree with you, but I don't know about the committee. No shot. Although credit to them for winning today. I mean, that was a crazy game in the snow. Liked it a lot. Yeah, their right side of that offensive line today got caved in. That looked like the right side of the line looked like Auburn playing Tulane or something. You know, a lower level, you know, a group of 5 team. Like they caved in that part of the line all night. And I've got bad news about your next week because Jordan Davis is coming. I mean, again, OU by a lot, OU by a little. That's Bedlam. Every year. Now, you know, maybe they come back and win. Facing on that throw from Spencer Sanders. Doubt it. Every year. It doesn't matter how good Oklahoma State is. It doesn't matter how good OU is. You think Michigan, Ohio State's one-sided. At least that rivalry historically has been awesome. This rivalry is terrible. I think Oklahoma's like 84-19 and something like. So OU by a lot, OU by a little, but we'll see. There's still 25 minutes left of game time. Spencer Sanders rolling. Oh, nice throw. I didn't even see him over there on the sideline. Okay, so for reals this time, we're going to go 10 more minutes. Get all your questions and comments in by 9:15. And then I'll answer all those, and then we're going to get off. All right? Sound good to everybody? Thank you all for being here. I went to a school called Western Illinois. You've probably none of you have ever heard of it. Maybe when you noticed us in the FCS playoffs a couple times. But we've been pretty miserable the last 3 years. Anyway, so the first game of the year is always on a Thursday night, at home or on the road. And I remember the first game of one year, it was 85, and I'm sitting in the press box because I'm doing stats, and I'm dying. And then I remember the last game of the year we played the weekend after Thanksgiving, and we had heaters in the box. It was snowing on the field. There was maybe 1,000 people in the stands. Oh, so I know what that weather's like. It's just Iowa football. Again, you guys win 8-9 games a year. You made now 2 Big Ten title games. It's not pretty, but it works. You force a lot of turnovers. Handful of teams that wish they could do that. Most notably, Wisconsin. Wisconsin can never force turnovers, and that's why their defense gets held back. I can't remember his name. I my brain is so fried right now. I don't remember. More. No, that was back in October. Was there one? I don't remember. I was like, oh, I thought he meant there was a targeting last week. Yeah, no, that was Jameson Williams, the receiver, who's on punt, and Oklahoma gets a stop. Who was on punt again for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah, Mike Gundy, good coach, but yes, it was Jameson Williams, a wide receiver. You're right. You're right. I thought when he asked the question, he was talking about something happened in the second half against Arkansas, and I was like, I don't remember anything happening. But yeah, no, that was Williams. The Bolitnikoff final. Did Oklahoma State make a field goal? No. College football, Chase Daniel. NFL, Marcus Golden. My dad I know, and it cost them today. Well, they won, so it didn't cost them. But NFL, Marcus Golden. I know Marcus a little bit. I've talked to him a couple times. My dad was his principal in high school, so I love Marcus. I'm like one of probably 3 people on the planet besides his mom, who's lovely, to have his jersey. So I'm gonna go Chase and then Marcus. I could say Marcus for both, but I'm gonna say Chase for the one. They do. It's weird, especially with 85 scholarship players and the talent Alabama recruits every year. I understand for the speed, and I understand if you have some starters, but when this man was obviously going to put up huge numbers and is a Biletnikoff finalist, I just wouldn't risk it. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't risk it. He'll have to sit. No, it was in the second quarter, so he won't have to sit next week. All right, guys, 7 minutes or so. Get all your questions and comments in. I'll get to all of them, and then I'm going to head off for the night. Enjoy the rest of my college football Saturday. Blaine Gabbert was the most frustrating player of all time because he would show you flashes, and then he would inevitably muck it up. Like he played the OU game in 2010, he played incredibly, and then went to Nebraska and Texas Tech and just pooped himself. No, that was James Franklin, and then he got hurt, and it was Corbin Bergstresser. Chase was 06 to 08. He was the starter when they got to number 1 in the country. So I just remember being a kid and being like, oh my God, Missouri's number 1. Yay. Yeah. Yay. Only at this time of year, though. You don't catch me in June going, hey, you want some eggnog? Because no. See, I think it would be more fun if OU won tonight and Oklahoma State won next week. But also, if Oklahoma State won tonight, then I could just ask for Baylor to win next week. So I don't know. I don't like whatever. It's fine. It was just, I myself included, hyping up Oklahoma State's defense and then just watching him get shredded by Caleb Williams. He needed to come back for a year. He had a rocket arm, and he can move. He was a guy that was never going to break off like a 60-yard run, but he can get a first down. He could pick up a 3rd and 8 with his legs. He had the ability. He was just kind of a rockhead sometimes. I mean, he's still in the NFL, so he's obviously not doing something right, but he needed to stay another year, and that game exposed it quite a bit. That was a fun one, if I remember. They don't always disappoint. This is just who they are. They so often they enter November with 1 loss or undefeated, and can Oklahoma State make a run, and they lose to OU, and then they lose another game. It's just what they do. Since Mike Gundy got there, it's just what they do. They can't beat OU in their history and Mike Gundy. He did win a Super Bowl as a backup. Chase Daniel also won a Super Bowl as a backup. Backup you over here, baby. Let's go. And now we have a backup quarterback starting. God, he was so disappointing this year. Brad Smith didn't win a Super Bowl, unfortunately. But Matty Mock did win an SEC East. Somehow. Just kidding. Love Matty Mock. Have a jersey of him. Well, it's a number 7 Mizzou shirt. It's not a Matty Mock shirt. They're the biggest winner, but they're also one of the biggest losers, because where do they go now? Big 12 is going to suck now. Where do you go? The Big 10 isn't taking them. They're probably going to take Kansas and maybe Iowa State. But they're not going to take Oklahoma State. Oh, Caleb, you just need to get down on that one, buddy. So I don't know if they're a winner because they're about to lose a lot of prestige. Gundy does have a good mullet. I mean, he always wins 7 games. Build the conference, but with what? Like you can only become so prestigious when you don't have the programs. Because now what is it? The top of your conference now is probably what? Baylor, Cincinnati when they join, depending on who their next hire is and coach if Fickle leaves. Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, who just hired Sonny Dykes. Tebow, easy. Even though Beathard had a pretty decent career in the NFL, if he's still around, I don't remember. Is he still with the 49ers? And he led Iowa, of course, to that undefeated season. So I like Beathard. Jake Locker, man, I forgot he was a thing there for a little bit. Did fine at Washington. Was pretty mediocre in the NFL. I know Tennessee drafted him. He was going to be the quarterback. Was he after? Because it went Vince Young, and then it went Kerry Collins, and they had the one weird 13-3 year. And then they drafted Locker. And then they drafted Mettenberger. Oh, my goodness. That's my name, Mr. My Cow Stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at PsychoZ50 for insane rants. If you go back in my history, all you'll find is me just blasting Connor Bazelak yesterday for he did. I don't know how that happened. He played pretty well in that game too. That might have been the best game he had as a pro. How long before no conferences? I don't know. It does kind of seem like we're on that way. It does kind of seem like we're heading that way, but I don't know the timeline on that. Is it a decade? Is it 2 decades? That's something that's going to take a lot of time. New Big 12 or ACC? ACC, because ACC, those programs, I'm looking at Florida State, Virginia Tech, Miami have more prestige to them than TCU. TCU, Okie State. Those programs have a level that they can get to that the Big 12 schools do not. Now, right now, I would kind of agree. They're kind of on a similar level. But I think the levels that those schools can get to is higher than the Big 12 schools. Yeah, it's kind of how it looks like we're going. And then you heard the mega report that the SEC is trying to add like Ohio State or whatever. I don't remember who reported that. If that were to happen, that's just ESPN trying to take over, put a monopoly on college sports. Hey, thanks, man. Subscribe to Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers TV. I mean, he covers everything from UCSC to Florida, and I know we've covered everything today, especially in the last few hours. But yeah, we just try to cover everything. Thanks, man. Yeah, follow me on Twitter. I'll be back next week. I don't know if I'll be on this channel, but subscribe to Voice of College Football SEC and Voice of College Football Alabama. We'll definitely be doing a pregame. I'll definitely do a pregame show, and I'll definitely be doing a postgame show. So it was a really down year for the SEC. It was. Florida wasn't very good. The West wasn't good outside of Alabama and Auburn. So agree. The SEC did have a down year, and they need to bounce back quickly. The last time they bounced back quickly was because they got good quarterbacks. And even the middle tier teams of the SEC had quarterbacks. Drew Lock at Mizzou. Trying to think. Jake Bentley was pretty good for South Carolina, like 2016, 2017. Vanderbilt had, oh God, what was that kid's name? Oh, I can picture him too. It's going to bother me. But Vanderbilt had a competent quarterback. Oh God, I need to look up his name. Kyle Shermer. Thank you, God. Kyle Shermer, the middle of the SEC had really good quarterback play. Florida got Felipe Franks, who wasn't great, but that's what the SEC needs to do. Tough lot. Yeah, it did. It really did. That was a rough look for them. That was tough. And Brian Harsin and Tank Bigsby and these guys are going to be kicking themselves down the road. Oh yeah, Mark will be here. Some of these guys, yeah. There's a lot of fans that'll run and hide. Mark will always be here. Yep. Congrats to them. We talked about that game quite a bit because it was going on for 2.5 hours. Yeah, that was an excellent game plan by Harbaugh, playing the way he wants to play, smash mouth football. They were getting 5-6 yards whenever they wanted. Cade McNamara had all day to throw. Now you beat him once, you got to beat him again. Now make this even. Make it not a shock when Michigan beats Ohio State. That's the next step for Michigan. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to Mark for letting me do this. You can follow me on Twitter at PsychoZ50. I'll be here on the Voice of College Football SEC. I'm going to try and do we're going to try and do a pregame show. I'm going to definitely be here next week for a postgame show at Voice of College Football SEC, Voice of College Football Alabama. I don't know if I'll be on this channel for the SEC title game. Follow me on Twitter, PsychoZ50. Follow Mark Rogers at Twitter at Mark Rogers TV. Subscribe to all of these YouTube channels. Everyone, there's a lot of people here, more than just Mark, more than just me, that do a lot of awesome work. And there's channels for most college football teams you can think of. Brother, why aren't you watching Oklahoma State, Oklahoma? So thank you all so much. I've said it before. I could talk college football by myself because that's just what I do. I love this sport. I love this game. It makes it so much more fun talking to you guys. And you can tell my computer's about to die because my face isn't lighting up. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturdays. Drink responsibly. Congratulations to Alabama today on their win over Auburn. And I will see you all next week for championship weekend as the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs take on probably number 3 Alabama Crimson Tide. Have a great night. Thank you.